I guess if you had asked me a few weeks ago how my marriage was, I'd have said, pretty solid. Nothing special, but stable, like an old, comfortable couch you've had for years. My wife, Emma, and I had been together for 14 years, married for 11, and we had the kind of routine that made life predictable. She worked in marketing, I ran my own IT business from home, and our evenings were spent together watching TV, half scrolling through our phones, like most couples our age. Lately, though, something had shifted. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I could feel it in the air, like the way the pressure changes before a storm rolls in. Maybe it started with her phone. Emma used to leave it lying around without a second thought, but suddenly, it was always face down on the table. She used to scroll through Instagram in bed, but now she kept her screen tilted away from me. She'd laugh at something, then quickly swipe the notification away before I could glance over. I told myself I was being paranoid. Then there was the work stuff. Emma's always had deadlines, late meetings, the usual corporate grind, but over the past month, she'd started working later than usual. At first, it was an extra hour or two. Then it became entire evenings at the office. "Sorry, babe, we've got this new client, and it's insane," she'd say as she grabbed her bag. "No problem. I got it. Work gets busy." But what really got me was the perfume. Emma had a signature scent, something light and floral, the same one she'd worn since we were dating. But one night, she came home smelling different. Something heavier, muskier. More seductive. It was subtle, but I noticed. She caught me sniffing the air as she walked past and smirked. "What? You smell different," I said. She barely hesitated. "Oh, I switched perfumes. Figured I'd try something new." Maybe that was true. But she hadn't switched in over a decade. Why now? I kept brushing these little things off until the message. It was a Wednesday night, and we were both sitting on the couch, a rerun of The Office playing in the background. Emma was typing something furiously on her phone, a small smile playing at her lips. I glanced over, not trying to snoop, just casually curious. And then I saw it. A notification flashed across the top of her screen. Just a name. M. But the preview of the message was what sent my stomach dropping. "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." My brain froze. My heart pounded in my chest, but my body stayed perfectly still. Emma? My Emma? No. It had to be a mistake. Maybe it was some inside joke with a friend. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. I forced my face to stay neutral, but my mind was already racing. She quickly swiped the message away, her expression not even changing. Like it was nothing. Like it was just another text. That was when I knew something was wrong. The storm was coming. I just wasn't ready for it. The second that message disappeared from Emma's screen, something inside me shifted. It wasn't a full-blown explosion, more like the quiet crack in a foundation, the kind that grows and spreads until the whole damn house collapses. I didn't say anything right away. I forced myself to act normal. If I overreacted without proof, I'd just look paranoid. And maybe, just maybe, there was a logical explanation. So, I waited. The next few days were hell. I watched her more closely, studying every little thing she did, looking for cracks in her story. And I found them. On Friday night, she came home later than usual. Normally, when she had a late work event, she'd come in exhausted, throw her heels by the door, and collapse onto the couch. This time, she walked in looking fresh. Like she'd just gotten ready, not like someone coming off a long day. Her makeup was still flawless. Her hair still smelled like expensive shampoo, not office air and stress sweat. And that perfume, the new one, lingered in the air around her like a fog. "Hey," she said, casually. Too casually. "You're still up?" I shrugged. Couldn't sleep. She kissed me on the cheek, her lips barely brushing my skin before she pulled away. If she had been out with coworkers, where were the tired eyes? The complaints about annoying clients? The little venting session she always had after a long day? Instead, she grabbed a glass of wine and went straight to the shower. It felt wrong. That's when I knew I couldn't ignore this anymore. I had to dig deeper. The first clue, her phone. That night, when she finally fell asleep, I made my move. Emma wasn't a particularly deep sleeper, but she had a habit of rolling over and curling up with her back to me. It gave me just enough time. Her phone was on the nightstand, screen down, like always. I knew her password, it was the same one she'd used for years. I took a slow, quiet breath and picked it up. I hesitated. Was I really about to do this? Snooping through your spouse's phone is a line you don't cross in a healthy marriage. But what if the marriage wasn't healthy anymore? I tapped the screen. The lock screen lit up. There was another message from M. Miss you already. Can't stop thinking about tonight. My hands clenched into fists. I unlocked the phone. The messages were gone. Completely wiped. That wasn't normal. Emma wasn't a clean out your messages type of person. She had texts from her mom going back months, shopping lists with her friends, even old work group chats she never bothered deleting. But this? Gone. She was hiding something. I put the phone back exactly as it was and rolled onto my side, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't just imagining this. I wasn't being paranoid. Something was going on. But I needed proof. Real proof. The second clue, the lying. The next morning, I decided to push my luck. So, how was the office thing last night? I asked over breakfast, keeping my voice casual. She barely looked up from her coffee. Huh? The late meeting. The one that kept you out until midnight. Oh. Yeah. It was fine. Just some client stuff. What client? Her eyes flickered, just for a second. A hesitation. You wouldn't know them. It's a new account. She was lying. I knew she was lying. Emma always told me about her big projects. She loved talking about work. If there was a new client, she'd have mentioned it a dozen times by now. Must have been exhausting, I said. She stretched and stood up. Yeah. Super tiring. I watched her closely as she grabbed her phone and disappeared into the bedroom. A minute later, I heard the soft click of the door locking behind her. That was new. The breaking point. I couldn't take it anymore. That night, I made a decision. If she was hiding something, I was going to find out exactly what it was. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. It started with a simple plan. Emma had mentioned she had another late meeting on Tuesday night. Same excuse. Same routine. So when she left the house, I waited 5 minutes, grabbed my keys, and took off after her. She didn't drive toward her office. My heart pounded as I tailed her at a safe distance. She took a different route, turning off into a side street near downtown. Then she pulled into the parking lot of a boutique hotel. I felt like I was going to throw up. I parked on the opposite side of the lot and watched as she stepped out of her car. Then he walked out to meet her. A tall guy. Dark hair. Confident. Smiling. They didn't shake hands. They didn't greet each other like co-workers. She walked straight into his arms, pressing herself against him, her hands sliding up his back. And then they kissed. Not a quick peck. Not a friendly hug. A deep, lingering kiss, like they'd done it 100 times before. Shattered. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My wife, the woman I had spent over a decade with, was cheating on me. The proof was right in front of me. I wanted to storm over there. I wanted to scream at her, at him. I wanted to throw a punch, demand answers, make a scene. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my phone. And I started recording. I sat in my car, phone in hand, recording the scene playing out in front of me. My wife, Emma, wrapped in the arms of another man, kissing him like she used to kiss me, like I was the one she couldn't wait to be with at the end of a long day. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. I needed to see this. I needed to burn the image into my mind because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. For 14 years, Emma had been my partner, my best friend. The person I trusted more than anyone. And now, she was in front of me, proving that trust had been misplaced. The way she looked at him, God, that look. It wasn't just lust. It was warmth. Affection. Like he was someone she cared about. That was almost worse than the cheating itself. I clenched my jaw and kept recording. Holding back the rage. They stood in the parking lot for another minute, whispering to each other, his hand resting low on her back. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Emma laughed softly, tilting her head in that familiar way she used to with me. Then, they walked inside the hotel together. My stomach turned. I knew what was happening next. This wasn't their first time. It wasn't an impulsive mistake. They had a routine. The way they moved together was comfortable. Easy. I forced myself to take a deep breath. Storming in there wouldn't accomplish anything. If I confronted her now, she'd just lie. She'd say it was a mistake, a one-time thing. She'd probably try to gaslight me, twist the truth into something else. I needed more. More evidence. More leverage. I tapped my screen, saving the video, and sent it to my personal email. Then, I opened the hotel's website. A quick search showed they had a restaurant and a bar inside. Perfect. I put my phone on silent, stepped out of the car, and headed inside. The setup. I walked through the hotel lobby, keeping my head down but scanning the area. The reception desk was to the left, a sleek modern setup with a distracted-looking clerk tapping on a computer. Straight ahead was the bar, a dimly lit space with an open view of the seating area. I spotted them immediately. Emma and him. They weren't in a hurry to get a room. They were sitting in a corner booth, close but not overly obvious. She had her hand on his, fingers tracing lazy circles against his skin. He was leaning in, whispering something that made her smile. I clenched my fists. I had to remind myself to breathe. I made my way to the bar and took a seat, positioning myself at an angle where I could watch them without being noticed. "What can I get you?" the bartender asked. "Whiskey." Neat. I barely tasted it when it arrived. My focus was locked on Emma. I wanted to hear what she was saying. I needed to know how far this had gone. And then, luck was on my side. They were close enough that when the restaurant quieted down for a moment, I caught pieces of their conversation. Hearing the lies. "I just hate sneaking around," Emma sighed, playing with her wine glass. "Oh, you hate sneaking around? That's rich." The man, let's call him Chris, since I didn't know his real name yet, smirked. "You could always leave him, you know." My heart stopped. "Leave me?" Emma let out a soft laugh. "It's not that simple." "It is," Chris pressed. "If you're not happy, why stay?" I leaned forward, every muscle in my body tightening. "I don't know," Emma murmured. "It's just habit, I guess. And I don't want to hurt him." Habit? That single word cut deeper than anything else. Chris took her hand again. "He doesn't make you happy, does he?" Emma hesitated. She didn't say no. She didn't defend me. She just hesitated. And that was my answer. I couldn't sit there any longer. I threw back the rest of my whiskey, set the glass down, and stood up. Time to end this. The confrontation. I walked straight to their table, my footsteps slow and deliberate. Emma looked up and her entire body went stiff. Her eyes widened in shock. Her mouth parted slightly, like she was about to speak, but no words came out. Chris frowned, glancing at me in confusion. Can we help you?" I smiled. Cold. Hollow. Yeah, I said, pulling out my phone. You can help me with this. I tapped the screen, and the video played. Their kiss. The way they held each other. The proof of everything. Emma's face drained of color. Chris looked between us, realization dawning. Shit. I turned my full attention to my wife. How long? My voice was quiet, but there was a sharp edge beneath it. Emma swallowed hard. Steve, How long? She looked down, suddenly unable to meet my gaze. A few months. A sharp, bitter laugh escaped me. Months, I repeated. Jesus Christ, Emma. I turned to Chris. And you? What's your excuse? Chris raised his hands. Look, man, I didn't. I cut him off. Save it. I don't give a damn what you have to say. Emma reached for me. Steve, please. I stepped back. Don't. Just don't. I could see the panic rising in her eyes. She hadn't expected this. She thought she was in control. She wasn't. Not anymore. I looked at her one last time. I hope he was worth it, I said, voice steady. Then I turned and walked away. Aftermath. I barely remembered driving home. My mind was a mess, swinging between rage, heartbreak, and an eerie sense of calm. I had seen the truth. Heard the truth. And now, I had a choice to make. I could forgive her. Or I could destroy her. And right now, I wasn't feeling very forgiving. I drove home in silence, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The night air was cool, but I was burning up inside. My mind was a hurricane: rage, betrayal, disbelief, and that gnawing ache of heartbreak all swirling together. Emma. The woman I had spent over a decade loving. The woman I trusted more than anyone. And she had looked me in the eyes and admitted she had been sleeping with another man. 4 months. I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there. The late nights. The secrecy. The way she pulled away from me while slipping into his arms. I wasn't some clueless fool. No, I had known something was wrong. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. But now? Now, I had choices to make. I could take the high road, walk away, let her go, file for divorce like a broken-hearted chump. Or I could burn her world to the ground. And God help me, the second option was looking real damn good. The first move. I got home and walked straight to my office. The house felt colder, emptier. It was the same place I had built with Emma, the same place we had laughed, made love, celebrated holidays, but now, it felt like a tomb. My marriage was already dead. I just had to decide how I was going to bury it. I sat down, took out my phone, and opened the video I had recorded of her and Chris at the hotel. Proof. My finger hovered over the send button. I could send it to her family. Her work. Her friends. I could post it online, expose her for what she was: a liar, a cheater, a fraud. But I stopped myself. Not yet. Revenge wasn't about blind rage. It was about control. And if I was going to do this right, I needed to be patient. Gathering the pieces. I spent the next few hours digging into everything. Emma wasn't just my wife, she was my business partner in some aspects. We had joint bank accounts, shared investments, and a mortgage together. If I wanted to come out of this without getting screwed over financially, I needed to be smart. I accessed our financial records and immediately saw something that made my blood boil. There were hotel charges. Multiple. Not just for the boutique hotel I caught her in tonight, but others. A whole trail of them. Some charges were on her personal card, but a few were on our joint account. She had been using our money to fund her affair. I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the disrespect. The sheer audacity of it. She had been screwing another man behind my back, and I had been paying for it. I copied every statement, every transaction, saving it all into a separate folder. This was going to be useful. Very useful. The plan forms. By the time the clock hit 3 a.m., I had a plan. It was simple. Secure my assets. Gather every piece of evidence. Let her think she's in control. Rip the rug out from under her when she least expects it. I called my lawyer first thing in the morning. "Steve," he said, sounding groggy. "What's going on?" "I need a divorce," I said bluntly. That woke him up. Jesus. What happened? I caught Emma cheating. I have proof. A lot of proof. I sent him everything: videos, screenshots, financial records. He was silent for a moment, then let out a low whistle. "Damn, Steve. You have enough here to bury her." "That's the plan," I said. The calm before the storm. Emma came home the next evening, pretending like nothing had happened. She walked in, dropped her bag by the door, and stretched. "Hey," she said casually, as if she hadn't spent the night in another man's bed. I looked up from the couch, forcing my face into something neutral. "Hey." She hesitated, probably expecting me to still be fuming. She had no idea I had already put the wheels in motion. "Listen," she sat down beside me, her voice careful. "I know last night was a shock." I gave a humorless laugh. "That's one way to put it." She reached for my hand, and I let her, for now. "I don't want to fight," she said softly. "I do love you, Steve." I stared at her. "You love me?" She nodded. I leaned in slightly. "Tell me something, Emma. When you were with him, when you were moaning his name, did you think about me then?" Her face paled. "Steve." I pulled my hand away. "Don't. Just don't." For a brief second, I saw something flicker in her eyes: panic. She was starting to realize that I wasn't reacting the way she expected. She had probably prepared for anger. For shouting. Maybe even for me to beg her to stay. But she hadn't prepared for this. For cold calculation. She swallowed. "I don't want to lose you." I tilted my head. "That's interesting. Because you seemed pretty comfortable with the idea last night." She looked down, guilt creeping into her features. I was confused," she murmured. "No," I said. "You were careless." A long silence stretched between us. Then, she tried again. "Maybe we could go to counseling?" I almost laughed. She wanted to fix this? After months of lies? After sneaking around with another man while telling me she loved me? "I don't think counseling will help, Emma," I said calmly. She bit her lip. You're really done, then?" I nodded. And that was when the tears came. I had expected them. Emma was good at turning on the waterworks when things didn't go her way. But this time, I didn't care. This time, I wasn't playing her game anymore. "I need some space," I said, standing up. "I'll sleep in the guest room for now." She looked up at me, her expression desperate. "Steve, please." But I was already walking away. The setup for the final blow. Emma thought she had options. She thought she could manipulate her way back into my good graces. What she didn't know was that everything was already set in motion. My lawyer was handling the paperwork. The financials were secured. And soon, she was going to find out exactly what losing me really meant. Because I wasn't just leaving. I was going to make sure she regretted every single choice she had made. For the next few days, I let Emma sit in silence, thinking. I could see the wheels turning in her head every time she looked at me. She didn't know what to expect. I wasn't raging. I wasn't pleading. I was waiting. And that scared her. She would open her mouth now and then, like she wanted to say something, but the words never came out. She was used to controlling the narrative, to smoothing things over. But this time? I had the upper hand. And I was about to use it. The moment of impact. It happened on a Sunday. She had been pacing the kitchen all morning, pretending to scroll through her phone, but she wasn't really reading anything. I could tell. Then she turned to me. "Steve," she started. I didn't look up from my coffee. "Yeah? We need to talk." I took a slow sip, letting the silence stretch. Then, finally, I met her gaze. "About what?" She hesitated. "You know what?" I smirked. "Do I?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Can you just stop?" "Stop what?" "The games. The distance. If we're going to fix this." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Fix this?" I echoed. "Emma, the only reason you're still standing here is because I let you." She flinched. "You don't get it, do you?" I continued, setting my cup down. "You don't get how deep this cut. How much you took from me." She swallowed hard. "I know I hurt you. You destroyed us." Emma shook her head. "I made a mistake." "You made a choice," I snapped. "Every single time you texted him. Every single time you snuck off to meet him. Every single time you lied to my face. You didn't make a mistake, Emma. You built a double life and thought I was too stupid to notice." She exhaled shakily. "I never wanted to hurt you." "Then why did you?" Silence. And that's when I knew she had no answer. Because the truth was simple. She did it because she wanted to. Because it was exciting. Because I was comfortable and he was new. And now that she was facing the consequences? She wanted a do-over. Too bad for her, life didn't work that way. Dropping the bomb. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. I filed for divorce. Emma's eyes widened. "What?" "You heard me." She blinked rapidly, as if trying to process it. "But wait, we haven't even talked about it." I tilted my head. "What's there to talk about?" She stammered. "I thought we could work through this." I chuckled. "Oh, you thought?" She swallowed. "Steve, we built a life together. That doesn't just disappear overnight. It disappeared the moment you spread your legs for someone else." Her face twisted. "That's not fair." I slammed my hand on the table, making her jump. "Not fair?" I stood up, towering over her. "You think this is unfair? You think it's unfair that I'm leaving? That I'm refusing to be some pathetic husband who forgives his wife for screwing another man?" Emma's breathing hitched. "Steve, No," I cut her off. "You don't get to talk anymore. You had months to talk. Months to tell me the truth. Months to come clean. But instead, you lied. You smiled in my face. You kissed me goodnight after being with him. And now? Now you expect me to sit down and work through this like it's some office dispute?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you." I shook my head. "You already did." She grabbed my hand, desperation written all over her face. "Steve, please, I'll do anything. I'll cut him off. I'll go to therapy. I'll prove to you that I love you." I pulled my hand away. "You don't love me. You love what I gave you." She inhaled sharply, but I wasn't done. "You love the security, the stability, the fact that I never gave up on you. You loved having a home, a man who took care of you, who put you first." I leaned in close, lowering my voice to a whisper. "And you threw it all away for a cheap thrill." Tears spilled down her cheeks. But I felt nothing. Not anymore. The final blow. I stepped back. I've already moved my things out. I've secured my finances. And guess what, Emma? She looked up, wiping at her face. I sent everything to your HR department. She froze. Her lips parted. What? I smiled coldly. That's right. I sent them proof of your little office romance. The texts. The hotel bills. Everything. She paled. You know. They have a strict no fraternization policy, don't they? I mused. I wonder what they'll say when they see how you and Chris spent your late meetings. Emma's breathing turned erratic. Steve, please, don't ruin my career. I raised an eyebrow. Why not? You ruined our marriage. Tears streamed down her face now. But I wasn't done. Oh, and one more thing, I added. I sent copies to your family. Your mom. Your dad. Your sister. Her face crumpled. Oh my God. And let's not forget your friends. I pulled out my phone, showing her the email list. I figured they should know who you really are. She clutched her chest, struggling to breathe. Steve, you're destroying me. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said the words I had been waiting to say. No, Emma. You destroyed yourself. Walking away. I turned on my heel, grabbing my keys. She stumbled after me. Steve, wait. I paused at the door. You don't get to beg now. She sobbed. I'll do anything, please, just don't leave like this. I looked back at her one last time. And in that moment, I realized the truth. She wasn't crying because she loved me. She was crying because she had finally, truly, lost control. And I wasn't her Steve anymore. I was a ghost. Someone who had already left. I gave her a small, cold smile. Enjoy your new life, Emma. Then I walked out. And I didn't look back. I didn't look back. Not when I walked out of the house. Not when Emma screamed my name. Not even when my phone started buzzing nonstop, her number flashing across the screen like a desperate heartbeat. I was done. She had spent months lying, cheating, and sneaking around, thinking she could have it all me, our home, our life together, while indulging in her exciting little secret on the side. Now, she had nothing. And for the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt free. But here's the thing about freedom: when you've been trapped in a lie for so long, stepping into the open doesn't feel like relief. It feels like stepping off a cliff. Drifting through the aftermath. I didn't sleep that night. I checked into a hotel across town, paid in cash, and locked the door behind me. The room was standard, neutral colors, a stiff bed, the faint smell of industrial cleaning products. It didn't feel like home. But then again, home didn't feel like home anymore either. I sat on the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. The confrontation. Emma's face when I told her about HR. The absolute fear in her eyes when she realized I wasn't just leaving, I was taking everything from her. I should have felt satisfied. Vindicated. And part of me did. But the other part? The other part was just tired. Because no matter how much I wanted to erase the last 14 years, I couldn't. The memories were still there. The love we had built. The laughter. The shared dreams. The nights we lay in bed, whispering about the future, believing we were in this together. All of it was real. And she destroyed it. I squeezed my eyes shut. This wasn't going to be an easy road. But I had made my choice. And there was no turning back. Emma's desperate attempts. The next morning, my phone had 67 missed calls and dozens of texts from Emma. Steve, please. Talk to me. I'm so sorry, I don't know what to do. I need you. Please don't do this. You're ruining my life. I love you. Please, please, please don't throw us away. The sheer audacity of it. Like I was the one throwing us away. Like I was the one who had broken everything. I let out a bitter laugh, then did what I should have done the moment I caught her cheating. I blocked her number. She didn't deserve a response. The fallout begins. Over the next week, I kept my head down and waited. Then, the news started trickling in. Emma lost her job. My lawyer called to tell me her company had officially terminated her for violating their no fraternization policy. Apparently, HR hadn't been subtle about it either. They had called her into a meeting, showed her everything, the texts, the financial records, the evidence, and told her she was done. Chris? He got fired too. I didn't know if they planned on staying together, but I had my doubts. Chris had been enjoying the thrill of sneaking around, of sleeping with a married woman. But now, Emma was toxic. She was unemployed, humiliated, and drowning in scandal. And me? I was walking away clean. A visit from a ghost. It took Emma 4 days to track me down. I had been staying at a friend's place, Tom, my best friend since college. He had welcomed me in, no questions asked, handing me a beer and telling me to take as long as I needed. So when the doorbell rang one night, I didn't expect anything out of the ordinary. But when I opened the door, there she was. Emma. She looked like hell. Her eyes were red, her hair was a mess, and she had that exhausted, desperate look of someone who hadn't slept in days. Steve, she breathed. I didn't say anything. She bit her lip, stepping closer. Can we talk? I stared at her for a long moment. Then, finally, I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. You have 5 minutes, I said coldly. She swallowed hard. I don't know where to start. Try explaining why you're here. She wiped at her eyes. Because I love you. Because I miss you. Because I made the biggest mistake of my life, and I don't know how to fix it. I laughed. Actually laughed. Fix it? I repeated. Emma, do you even understand what you did? You didn't just cheat. You lied to my face for months. You used our money to fund your affair. You made me feel like an idiot while you were sneaking off to screw another man. Tears streamed down her face. I was selfish. I was stupid. But I never stopped loving you. I shook my head. You don't get to say that anymore. She flinched. Steve, please, she whispered. If you give me a chance, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I took a deep breath. Then I leaned in, looking her straight in the eyes. You don't have a rest of your life with me, Emma. Her face crumbled. I stepped back. This is over, I said. And no matter how much you cry, no matter how many times you beg, that will never change. She reached for me, but I stepped away. Then, without another word, I turned and walked back inside. She stood there for a long moment. Then I heard her footsteps slowly fade away. And just like that, Emma was gone. The road ahead. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. Emma tried to fight for more, but with all the evidence I had, she didn't stand a chance. I got the house. I got the savings. She walked away with nothing but regret. And me? I started over. It wasn't easy. Some nights, I lay awake, wondering how the hell I ended up here. But as time passed, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. For the first time in years, my future wasn't tied to Emma's mistakes. It was mine to build. And no matter how painful this had been, no matter how deep the wounds ran, I knew one thing for sure. I was finally, truly, free.